This presentation includes forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties. Actual results may differ materially as a result of various risk factors, including those described in the 10-Ks, 10-Qs, and 8-Ks VMware files with the SEC.
This is Charlotte. She's away at school. Texts and chats with her friends a lot.
Okay.
But still talks with her mom every day.
Okay, sweetheart. Okay. Bye, I love you.
Yeah, she's a typical college student. Her goal is to become a surgeon, and she's able to learn from the best instructors,
Hi, Professor Freeman.
wherever they are around the world.
Now, Charlotte, I want you to scan your arm and take control of the device. See, it senses the smallest of movements, so you'll be very precise in surgery.
Like that?
That's it. Good job, Charlotte.
For a break from studies, there's a herd of elephants she likes to follow in real time. Next summer, she's going to Shanghai. While her Mandarin needs some fine-tuning, nothing will be lost in translation.
Don't they sound fantastic?
是最好的。
Or en route. Like that order of dumplings delivered straight to her doorstep. When she's ready to head home, Charlotte can relax while the car does the driving. She's growing up in a world far different, but not that far off. A world made possible by innovative apps, many clouds, and a secure, scalable digital foundation built on VMware. The future promises wonder and excitement, but the real magic is how you'll build your path to it. How will you make your mark?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ray O'Farrell.
Good morning, everybody. So welcome to day 2 of VMworld 2019. It's great to be back here in San Francisco. Great to see many returning visitors here at our VMworld event. Of course, when you look at that video, wasn't that a great video in the sense that you saw the experience that Charlotte had? And most of that are driven by the applications on her mobile devices, the way she purchases things, how it influences everything she does throughout her daily life. The interesting thing is sometimes we forget there's a lot of hardcore infrastructure which needs to make all of that work. Cloud infrastructure, networking infrastructure, security infrastructure to make those experiences true. But in the end, a lot of that comes down to that user experience, the way Charlotte interacts with the companies who are selling the products, who are teaching her, the university. All of these things are around the experience she has. And that is what's so important when you think about this world of digital transformation and the way digital infrastructure changes almost every industry. And this is not just about technology companies. It is about all of these different industries. Every industry is affected by this need to leverage these technologies. And the leaders of these industries know that the best way to leverage their infrastructure or the best way to leverage these applications is going to be the best way they compete. And failure to leverage this technology means somebody else is going to do it, and they're going to interact with their customers, and they're going to interact with their employees, and as a fact, that competitor is going to win. So there's an urgency, there's a pressure to say, what is the best way am I, as an enterprise, able to say, how do I leverage all this technology, and I need to do it quickly, but I also need to do it pragmatically because I've got to keep my existing business going. So one of the challenges here is this sense of dealing with complexity. There's a lot of applications. There's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of challenges one has to think out about, can I get access to the correct talent and so on. But when you really think about this, it really boils down to 2 problems most of the time. One problem is, how am I going to build modern applications in a way that is repeatable, secure, and allows my developers and my application developers to be productive? Because that's how I will drive an experience into my customer base. And the second one is, how do I take advantage of all of the technology available to me, this new world of infrastructure, which is now presented to me, and more, is a multi-cloud environment, a multi-cloud infrastructure, which they are trying to leverage. So, when we think about this story, you really can break it down into 4 different categories. There's a focus on how do I build and run my applications? How am I going to secure and protect those applications? How am I going to manage those applications and the infrastructure associated with them in a consistent fashion? And how am I going to make sure both my customers and my employees have the best experience with this? Now, this is not a linear story. You're building, you're running, you're managing, you're getting feedback from employees and customers all the time. It's a continuous journey with all of these factors feeding into it. But we're going to use this model to help take us through the journey of how VMware can help you address each of these problems. To make this a little bit more easy to describe and to have a narrative and a story about it, we're going to introduce a concept of a company called Tanzu Tees. And Tanzu Tees manufactures, distributes, and sells T-shirts. We know this audience loves T-shirts, so that's why we went in this direction. So when you think about Tanzu Tees, yes, it's a somewhat simplistic view of what you need to build here. But the challenges that Tanzu Tees face are the same challenges that many enterprise software companies, many enterprises who are selling products using digital infrastructure, selling online, leveraging all the infrastructure are going to face. So let's dig a little bit into what Tanzu Tees is up to. So broadly speaking, Tanzu Tees has 2 broad suites of digital infrastructure or digital challenges it faces. On the one hand, it's got to worry about the manufacturing, the distribution centers, and all of the infrastructure associated with them. On the other hand, it needs to deal with how do I how do I make the online experience for my customers who are going to buy this product? How do I handle the billing? How do I personalize their experience? A lot of that is probably going to leverage the cloud. But when you dig into what the applications look like, you begin to see patterns that many of you have probably seen before. Multiple languages, multiple frameworks, multiple clouds, all being used to build up that network of digital technology which delivers the solution for Tanzu Tees. And this is a challenge and the opportunity that many enterprises are facing today. So let's jump back to that kind of guiding light that we have at the moment, that we've spoken of to take us through this narrative. The first thing we're going to focus on is on build and run. And when you think about some of the key challenges with build and run, it comes down to building these applications more and more is around building cloud-native applications. They're often leveraging microservices, they're often containerized, they're often leveraging open source and leveraging cloud services. And you heard from Pat yesterday on our emerging focus on supporting the developers and the infrastructure providers to support those developers such that we can deliver these applications. And he described this as VMware Tanzu. And the elements of VMware Tanzu are these primary elements here. Build, run, and manage these core components of a modern application development system. And at the center of that, particularly on the build side of this story, we see the emergence of 2 core components, Pivotal and Bitnami. Pivotal has been on the forefront of this modern application transformation and indeed organizational transformation for many years. And there's key products focused on the building of microservice apps, but using this very modern approach. At Tanzu Tees, we want to leverage Pivotal. In addition, we also have Bitnami, a leader in the application packaging, with about 180 applications available in any format for any cloud, including the VMware Cloud and more. It's around how do I take the components of the application and bring those together and make sure I can deploy those with ease. However, we have another challenge when it comes to these applications. Note I said build and run. And so when we focus on how do I run and deploy these applications, I'd please like to welcome June Yang to take us through this part of the story. June.
Ray?
By the way, that's an incredibly long walk, isn't it?
It is.
So June, when we think about this whole concept of build and run, I focused a little bit about how do we build the applications, but we want to get into some hardcore demos on how are we actually going to run these applications. When I think of Tanzu Ts, I mentioned I had these two sets of digital infrastructure, one which is around the factories and the distribution.
Right.
I want that primarily to be on-prem infrastructure. I'm concerned about latency. I'm concerned about where I place these data centers. And my question to you, representing VMware here, is what can VMware do to make that easy for me? How do I build and put in place this on-prem infrastructure as easily as possible?
Thank you, Ray. Ray, this is a perfect fit for VMware Cloud and Dell EMC. Last year, we first tech previewed this technology under the codename Project Dimension. This year, I'm super excited to announce the availability of VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. With this brand new service, we're able to bring cloud experiences to customers' on-prem infrastructure across both edge and data center. So let's go to the demo. IT admin, this is for you. Showing here, we're going to first log on to VMware Cloud. Showing here is a single pane of glass view of all the SDDCs that Tanzu Ts has running on VMware Cloud. On the East Coast, we have a VMware Cloud AWS instance running. That's our primary data center. In the Midwest region, we have a VMware Cloud and Dell EMC instance running. That's for their central distribution center. As Tanzu T is expanding, they want to expand to the West Coast and set up a distribution center there. So we're going to go ahead and order SDDC for the West Coast. So first, we're going to enter the address of the location. Then, similar to the cloud, we're going to pick the suitable instance type, as well as selecting the number of hosts representing the capacity I need on that particular site. And then we're pretty much ready to submit the order. Because Tanzu Ts is in a hurry, we're going to go ahead and select Express Delivery. So once the order is submitted, behind the scenes, VMware and Dell are working together to build out the rack and preloading the latest software from SDDC. In the meantime, we're also working closely with the customer on their site preparation to make sure everything from power, cooling, and network is set up properly. Before long, the fully configured rack will show up at the customer doorstep, along with the technician, to deploy and activate the service. In a matter of hours, the fully functional SDDC is going to be up and running, and customer can leverage the SDDC as usual to be able to deploy and run their application. While we're waiting for the West Coast location to be set up, let's go back and take a look at our Midwest location, where our VMware Cloud and Dell EMC has been running for a while. As now we're ready to deploy the application. Because this is a service that VMware is running, we will be monitoring these services and the racks 24/7, fix any issues that may arise. We're monitoring everything from the hardware all the way to the software stack. In addition, VMware is also responsible for the full lifecycle management of these racks, the upgrade, the patching, etc. Again, everything from the firmware all the way to the software stack. So we take care of all these infrastructure management side of things. So customers, you don't have to. You can focus your time around applications and building out your business. With VMware Cloud and Dell EMC, we're truly bringing the cloud experiences to customers' on-prem infrastructure across both edge and data center.
So June, the Tanzu Ts is happy to leverage this technology because for a very large degree, while I want these data centers, I really would like somebody else to manage it, and this takes care of that. But you know, and we're going to see this pattern where somebody solves a problem for Tanzu Ts and I immediately pose another problem. I've got a lot of developers, and these developers want to build these new and modern applications, and I need them to be able to do so on vSphere infrastructure. They want to be able to use Kubernetes, they want to be able to use microservices. What's the best way to bring these two worlds together? I want great infrastructure, I want great Kubernetes development, and I want it all neatly tied together on my existing vSphere infrastructure.
Ray, Project Pacific is your answer here. So, Pat announced Project Pacific at the keynote yesterday, and he talked about how Project Pacific is building a deep integration of Kubernetes into vSphere. So let's go ahead and show you a demo of this. So we'll continue where we left off and go ahead and go up in vCenter. Project Pacific takes the application-centric approach. Modern application is often comprised of a collection of VMs and a collection of containers. Rather than managing individual containers or VMs, we want to enable a customer to be able to manage the application as a whole. So what's showing here is a list of applications that's running on this instance. Let's go ahead and go to the shipping application. As application now is a unit of management, we can operate on the application much the same way we operate on the VM. So let's go ahead and set resource quota for this particular application. We'll go set up a CPU limit. In a few clicks, we're able to set the CPU limit for this entire application, and this is going to be respected for all the components inside the application. Similarly, we can also apply storage policies and access control policies much the same way. So let's go back to the application and see what our developers has been doing with it. We see a Kubernetes cluster that has been created. Let's go ahead and open that. So this Kubernetes cluster is created by the developer themselves using native Kubernetes API. All of this without IT involvement. Let's take a look at what else is running in this application. We see we have a database VM running there. And this looks like any other normal VM. But the cool thing here is that the developers were able to deploy this VM using Kubernetes. That's right. vSphere has harnessed the power of Kubernetes, not just for the containerized application, but have extended that to the virtual machines as well. With Project Pacific, we're enabling IT to set up guardrails at the application level, like setting up the resource limit. Within those guardrails, we're able to have developers work independently and freely within that framework, and using Kubernetes as an interface to interact with our infrastructure. Lastly, we're seeing that we have a Kubernetes pods running on this. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's running in the pod. I see there's multiple containers running in there. These Kubernetes pods are running natively on ESX. And by the the fact that they're running on the ESX they're running on the ESX natively. And by running these pods directly on ESX, we have not only made it more secure, we have also made it more performant, as Joe Beta talked about yesterday. Underneath the hood, vSphere now has a Kubernetes service running natively. We have embedded a virtual machine. We have embedded the Kubernetes control plane directly into vCenter, and have also made Kubernetes pods native to ESXi. With this, we are taking vSphere to the next level, and this is one of the most significant architectural evolution of vSphere in the recent years. With this, we're taking vSphere, a product you love and trust, to the next level, making it into the platform of choice for all modern applications.
So what we're seeing here is not simply Kubernetes running on top of vSphere. We're saying vSphere itself has been extended to really embrace Kubernetes as a core feature of the vSphere infrastructure itself. And I've looked at obviously lots of evolution of vSphere and ESX over the years. This is a very significant feature set being added to vSphere. I think the key magic here is you've got roughly 500,000 customers at this stage probably using vSphere. With Project Pacific, they now all get to be able to say, what is my best way to upgrade these products such that they're able to also manage and act as a great runtime for Kubernetes.
That's right.
Okay, yep. Excellent. So, of course, I've got another question, right? So you've set up my on-prem infrastructure. You've showed me what is the best way to run Kubernetes on my vSphere infrastructure. But what I also want to understand is how do I manage at scale? Tanzu wants to be a big multinational organization. I want to run lots of clouds. I want to run on lots of clouds depending on where I am. I want to manage all of these new Kubernetes applications. What can you help me do that at enterprise scale?
I've got the answer for you. This is why we built Tanzu Mission Control. Let's take a look at this from the SRE or DevOps persona perspective. Let's go to the demo. Let's log on to Tanzu Mission Control. What we're seeing here is a list of Kubernetes clusters from multiple clouds that Tanzu has running. We can see there are clusters from vSphere, from AWS, from Google and Azure as well. In the summary view, we're able to clearly see where these clusters are and be able to monitor the well-being of these clusters. If there are issues, we can troubleshoot and drill down. If we want to create a new cluster, we can simply go to create new cluster and be able to deploy it to the cloud of your choice. And if there are existing clusters, you can also attach them to Tanzu Mission Control for centralized management. Similar to Project Pacific, Tanzu Mission Control also takes an application-centric approach. Modern applications, as Ray talked about, are often running on multiple Kubernetes clusters across multiple clouds for reasons like cost, resiliency, geographical reach. Tanzu uses a namespace as a representation of the application. So let's go ahead and go create a new namespace. When you create a new namespace, you can select a cluster that's relevant for this application and add them to the namespace. Then we'll provide a couple of pieces of information, and the namespace is created. Once the namespace is created, we can go ahead and assign policies, and these policies are propagated throughout all the cluster inside the application, regardless of where the clusters reside. So let's go ahead and create an access control policy for this application. But before we do that, I want to show you what life is like before Tanzu Control if you were trying to do the same thing. So without Tanzu Mission Control, customer would have to go to individual cloud console, then be able to connect to individual clusters within that cloud, and then be able to do a role binding from the users in a role. As you can see, this can get pretty repetitive and time-consuming as well. So let's contrast that with what Tanzu Mission Control can do under the same scenario. With Tanzu Mission Control, we will simply add a role binding to the group of users that you want to have access to this authorization. And that's it. Behind the scenes, what Tanzu Mission Control is doing is propagating the changes to the various clusters, regardless of where they live. With Tanzu Mission Control, this is just a simple example of what Tanzu can do. It can do much more. With Tanzu Mission Control, we're enabling our DevOps to manage fleets of Kubernetes clusters across multiple clouds at enterprise scale.
So thank you, June. What you're describing here between all of these products is this great blending between the enterprise infrastructure, whether it's from vSphere, whether it's on-prem vSphere, all the way into these very modern applications. Okay. So at this stage, let me summarize a little bit about what we're seeing with Tanzu Mission Control. So this is a de facto standard for managing these VMs across all of what we're going to see here across multiple clouds. So it's going to be a powerful new product from that point of view, because what you're seeing is examples for vSphere and examples for multi-cloud with a unified Kubernetes management layer across all of those. Thank you, June.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks.
There you go.
So while we've been talking about these examples in the context of this Tanzu T's fictitious store, right? A lot of this is very real. So for instance, at VMware today, internally, we spin up about 500,000 containers and 1.3 million VMs created and destroyed weekly, just as VMware is doing its development and as we run VMware as a large enterprise company. And it's not just within VMware. We also see the same within our customer base. Most of you know of Domino's Pizza. Leveraging their relationship with VMware, Domino's is working to extend its offering through Kubernetes. Using a container-based approach, it allows Domino's to deploy their software consistently and securely, and truly enabling this multi-cloud approach. So we looked at this build and run model at the moment, and let's summarize briefly some of the products that we saw. You saw VMware Cloud on Dell EMC bring cloud experience to the on-prem infrastructure. You saw Project Pacific deploy and operate modern applications on VMware vSphere infrastructure natively. And you saw VMware Mission Control, VMware Tanzu Mission Control, manage Kubernetes at enterprise scale across multiple clouds. So let's take what's the next step in this journey. We need to consider, how do I secure all of this infrastructure and all of these applications, and how do I connect it together? To help me do that, please welcome Marcos Hernandez.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, Marcos. How are you doing? I think you've got some fans out here. So Marcus, once again, we're going to focus on some component of what Tanzu Tees needs to deal with. And here we're focusing on this connect and protect, which is really around security to a very large degree. So the specific problem I would like to solve at this stage is I've got this emerging complex application infrastructure. It's difficult to maintain and understand, particularly when I'm hitting performance problems. I want to know, how can I track down quickly, and how do I leverage some of the VMware technologies to make sure I can optimize all of that infrastructure? And I'm sure you've got something to help me with that.
I sure do, Ray.
Thank you.
For the first demo that we're going to be showing, I'm going to play the role of a service reliability engineer. My job is to keep the application performing optimally. So let's see it. From the Tanzu mission control, we can jump into the NSX service mesh console. Here, I see my Tanzu T application spread across 2 clusters in 2 different clouds, in 2 different data centers. There's an AVI Networks load balancer redirecting traffic to each cluster based on attributes like user proximity, latency, performance, etc. One of the canonical use cases of the NSX service mesh is performance assurance. To show you this, we've created a very simple service level objective policy that defines acceptable levels of latency and error rate for my application. We're going to trigger a violation. We're going to bring down some infrastructure here to trigger a violation. My West data center has disappeared. 50% of my infrastructure is gone. And now, automatically, the AVI Networks load balancers is rerouting 100% of the traffic to a surviving cluster. This is causing pressure, and we can see that there are some services that are in alert state. Let's go ahead and dig into, let's go to a performance tab. And we can see here the offending services, and also that latency and error rate have gone up, whereas my number of instances supporting my microservices is going down. But if we wait just a few moments, we'll see here how the self-healing and auto-scaling capabilities of the service mesh in coordination with technologies like our hybrid cloud runtime and the intelligent routing of the AVI Networks load balancer will bring my application back to acceptable levels of performance, as defined by my SLO policy.
Okay, so I'm leveraging service mesh to help me basically help and automate and even remediate in some cases when I experience some form of a performance issue.
Yep.
So what I also want to understand, though, is my environment is extremely dynamic. We're a growing company. We're bringing in new data centers, new infrastructure all the time. And frankly, I'm kind of sick and tired of having to spend so much time dealing with all of the security reconfiguration when I do that. Why is the infrastructure not able to do some of that for me automatically?
We can do some of that.
Okay.
For my second demo, I'm going to switch hats, and now I'm going to be a security and networking architect. And we're introducing, let's see the demo, we're introducing a new capability in NSX called NSX Intelligence. And I'm very, very excited. I love all our demos, but I'm very excited about this one. From NSX Manager, we can go to the Plan and Troubleshoot tab. And here, NSX Intelligence is reporting on the universe of applications that are known by this system, as well as all the flows, protected and unprotected, currently on the wire. We can focus our attention on our Tanzu Tees application and get a view of the different groups that comprise this app. If we drill down even further, we can see that this particular tier of the app is made up of containers, bare metal workloads, and VMs. We are ingesting telemetry from a number of data sources, vRealize Network Insight, App Defense, and in the future, VeloCloud and AVI Networks. And we're also learning rich Layer 7 context information about my app. We take all of this, and we apply data science to then create a security recommendation, which I'm going to show next. We're going to run a security recommendation for Tanzu Tees. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just narrow down the flows and the information applicable for this particular app. The first thing that the system will show me is a list of firewall rules that will protect this application. I'm going to proceed, and here I'm prompted for placement in the overall firewall table. In the next screen, and this is the coolest part of this demo, is the before and after. I can turn on simulation mode, and then before applying my policy, see what the effect of that security posture will be. If I'm satisfied with that, I can publish to the firewall table and then see that the security policy has been realized. You're going to see that in the next screen. But to close the loop and make sure that everything is working as intended, I can go back to plan and troubleshoot and see that only protected flows are allowed on the wire. And this means that with just a few clicks, I microsegmented an application using the power of machine learning. Boom.
Okay. I think you really like this, right? Okay. Okay, so I'm convinced I'll buy one of these at Tanzu Teas, right? However, as once again, you know, I'm going to come up with some more problems for you. So one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is the application security itself. I'm interested in the risk mitigation. And a lot of the products we're talking about are beginning to embed machine learning into them. And I'd like to understand what sort of technology I can bring to bear to say, can I proactively begin to understand how do I manage some of this risk mitigation, but back up at the apps this time.
Okay. So for my third and last demo, I'll switch hats again, and now I'll be a vSphere admin. Let's go ahead and roll the demo. What we're looking at here is app defense. We want to showcase intrinsic security capabilities that we've put into ESXi. So you're looking at the app defense vCenter plugin that is available with vSphere. And what we're doing here is learning all the events and network behavior across the entire infrastructure. And then we use carbon black technology to assign a risk score to each one of these events. Then if I go to the SEC vulnerabilities tab, I can see that there are 6,000 events that have been identified by app defense. The problem is that our admins have is, what do I do first? What do I fix first? So the system does that for us. Again, leveraging machine learning technology. And we have narrowed it down to one critical event associated with this particular Windows operating system. If we drill down even further, we can see that it's affecting my app tier. And in the next screen, we will get more information about the offending process, which just happens to be Tomcat. This allows me, Ray, to have a conversation with my application team and go tell them, do this first, focus on this issue first. Then they can go to the app defense manager and take remediation action. We'll see here that the process that is causing the exception, raising the alarm, is a rogue PowerShell script that shouldn't really be happening in this environment. So with that, we can close the loop and secure the application and patch the application using app defense and carbon black.
I was expecting boom there as well, right?
Boom.
Okay. So this idea of leveraging technologies such as carbon black to be able to leverage some machine learning AI to look across the application space, powerful features beginning to emerge. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you. So once again, let's step away from Tanzu Teas and look at how some of these technologies are used in the real world. One of our customers, the United States Senate Federal Credit Union, they use VMware vSAN on Dell hardware and VMware App Defense to protect some of their business, their most critical business applications. And this is the type of technology we've described here today, which will be brought to bear more and more to solve these types of problems. So let's move on in our journey here, and we've just discussed Connect Protect, and let's summarize the products we've seen. VMware NSX Service Mesh, optimize microservices application performance. VMware NSX Intelligence, machine learning at the heart of your infrastructure security, and with VMware App Defense, we end up workload security, again leveraging some intelligence, leveraging technologies such as carbon black. So we now think about what the next step in our journey is, and now we're focused on management. So when we think about the overall journey here, one of the key aspects of management is I need consistent management. Everything is beginning to get complicated at this stage. I have multiple clouds, I have different types of infrastructure, I have these new types of highly distributed apps, so I want consistent management. To take us through and tell us a little bit more about this, please welcome Purnima Padmanabhan. Hi, Purnima.
Thank you, Ray.
Hi. Purnima and I had a joke to see would I actually be able to pronounce her name correctly.
And you did.
Okay?
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks. So Purnima, the challenge that we have here is we're looking for consistent management. The operational challenges as Tanzu Tees is growing is how do I manage all of these complex microservices environment, the rapidly going infrastructure I have. And the biggest challenge I have is something goes wrong. How do I quickly zone in and figure out where is the problem actually occurring?
Perfect. I think we've got a great set of solutions to help here. The first one is Wavefront by VMware. Wavefront gives you enterprise observability so that you can immediately troubleshoot your apps, identify the problem, and remediate it, whether the apps are modern apps or traditional apps. And what Wavefront does is it pours hundreds of thousands of metrics, well, actually million metrics per second into a data lake, and then is able to rapidly pinpoint that one point of problem that is the issue. Why don't we take a look? Let's go at the demo. So right here you can see the Tanzu shopping service is having a problem. It's failing. So let's drill into it. Right within the Tanzu mission control, you can see the red metrics, and you can see that the transaction and latency are not doing well. So let's click into this particular shopping service and go into Wavefront. With Wavefront, what we have introduced new is the notion of distributed tracing. So in addition to metrics, histograms, span logs, you also have distributed tracing. It pulls the connectivity of the application directly from service mesh. So you can see shopping cart, shopping service is dependent on pricing, but you can also see how the transaction is performing. And if you look at the latency, the problem issue is not with the shopping microservice, but it's actually with the pricing service, which is at the bottom, showing the latency. So now you can switch into pricing, and right there you can see that there is a spike in pricing latency, which we have to now figure out where it is coming from. So you've got these hundreds of queries. With Wavefront, of course, you can do the needle in a haystack, do a correlation, and within a second, you'll know the query that is problematic. At this point, I can right-click on the query, understand what it is, and send a note to the developer in a Slack channel to say, go ahead and fix it. And when they fix it, they can use vRealize CodeStream to check in their fixes back into the production environment. But let's also go and look at one more problem. Right there, you can see that the database I/O wait times have gone up. And with that, you also see that there's a vSAN latency problem. Now, to debug infrastructure issues, we have got vRealize operations. So right from the Wavefront console, you can switch in context, to that specific vSAN cluster that's causing the problem. And you can see this vSAN has issues with I/O latency. Now, in a normal scenario, you would go and tweak the knobs to see how you can maybe increase the cache size, maybe add more capacity to the cluster. But what we are introducing within vRealize operations is a new project called Project Magna. And what Magna allows you to do is to dynamically fix these issues. Why don't we go ahead and enable Magna? You can see the KPIs have drifted down. Let us go ahead and enable Magna, and while Magna is working in the background, let me explain what's happening. With virtualization, vSphere, NSX, and vSAN, you've got a powerful set of capabilities, a lot of knobs that you can tweak to get the optimal performance. But how do you know which knobs to set for the best performance? How do you know that when you tweak the knobs for one particular application, it does not compromise another? And then how do you change it on an ongoing basis when the performance of the application and the load characteristics are changing? Magna solves exactly for that problem. It is a perfect problem for artificial intelligence. Using reinforcement learning techniques, Magna constantly searches the problem space and identifies that perfect setting for that point in time. And as things change, it keeps changing. So why don't we refresh the screen and see what Magna has done? And as you can see, Magna has taken multiple small actions, and it has brought the KPI back up automatically. This is all in your available now, will be available as part of your virtualization infrastructure. If you scroll down, you can see that Magna has been manipulating many variables, and one of them is a cache size. It has increased cache size when it needed more performance, and release the cache when it didn't need. So Ray, what do you think?
So I like very much this concept of being able to auto-tune the infrastructure. We introduced Magna, we spoke about the concept last year, but here you're beginning to see it applied in real-world products, right at the heart of the storage infrastructure itself. So you've solved my problems in terms of making management easy, but I'm still concerned about the economics of my overall company here, right? I'm continuing to grow, I'm beginning to leverage lots of new cloud infrastructure. Sometimes I get surprised by the bill. I want to get a proactive view of where I am spending, and if possible, some proactive view of when I'm about to hit a problem, where growth is maybe going a bit out of control.
Perfect. So we have a product for that also, Ray. Cloud Health by VMware. Cloud Health is a multi-cloud management platform that allows you to manage your costs, security, and governance across various cloud environments, including VMware's hybrid cloud. Now, right here on the Tanzu Mission Control, you can see the cost for the application. So why don't we drill into the cost? And you can see that this application is, when you look at the screens, you can see the application is spread across east and western availability zones. And if we click into the eastern zone, you can see that while the availability capacity is pretty high, the actual consumed capacity is not that much. We are only consuming about half the capacity. So at this point, we'll ask Cloud Health to give us some recommendations, and Cloud Health pinpoints those specific set of VMs that are running low, and at this point, I can do a reclamation action. Now, Ray asked one more question. How do I proactively know about my costs? So that is where I can go ahead and set a policy within Cloud Health, and the policy says that if I am going to run over my budget, make sure you alert me. So right here, we are setting up the policy, and just for kicks, we will send the email to Sanjay so that he knows we are going to run out of budget.
Yeah, Sanjay is always great at helping me with the budget here. So
you saw how not only Cloud Health was able to help you reclaim unused VMs, but also was able to proactively tell you when you're going to run out of budget.
Excellent. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you, Purnima.
Thank you, Ray.
So once again, let's consider this outside of the world of Tanzu Teas. We look at a company such as Zora. Zora realized that Wavefront, and Wavefront was at the heart of much of the data gathering and everything that you saw here, realized that Wavefront service was the fastest and most cost-effective way that they would use to get observability and alerting on their broad application set. And today, most of Zora's application teams actually use Wavefront. It becomes part of an essential production tool for them. Let's summarize everything we heard from Purnima here. First of all, you saw VMware Wavefront and Magna allowing you to rapidly detect and resolve issues across all of your applications, including these microservices applications. How we leverage machine learning to dynamically tune your infrastructure, and leveraging Cloud Health, how do we manage and optimize cloud's cost with a proactive view of the spending that you are likely to be making, and therefore you get to react to that. So up until this point, we've really looked at how Tanzu Teas deals with its internal infrastructure, but more and more we need to, and its customers, but we also need to think about Tanzu Teas' own employees. What is the experience of those employees? And to help us talk about that, please welcome Shika Mittal. Hi, Shika. How are you doing?
Good.
So, Shika, Tanzu Teas is growing rapidly, hiring lots of people. We want to be able to make sure that we can onboard those people as quickly as possible. And one of the challenges I have when we bring in people, particularly say when we're hiring contractors, we need a lot of them in a short period of time. How do I get them running quickly? How do I make sure they have a great experience as they come on board Tanzu Teas?
Sure, Ray. So let me show you how VMware provides a digital workspace for employees so that they can feel engaged and productive on any device, anywhere. We have just the solution for you if you are looking to onboard a site as quickly as possible and provide secure access. We are working on Horizon Desktop as a Service on VMware Cloud on AWS. Let's see the demo. So first things first, we need some infrastructure to run these desktops on. Now, this has become really easy. The admin goes into the Horizon Management Console to add a VMware Cloud site. He's taken to a very simple wizard that asks basic questions like the number, type of desktops, etc. And instead of a lengthy manual process, the Horizon site automatically goes live right alongside the existing on-premises site. And here is one that we created earlier. So Ray, this global dashboard view is super convenient for the admin because he can now see all his multi-cloud sites in one place, see the elastic expansion across VMware Cloud, and maybe even share resources across sites. Next, let's do some desktop configuration. Check out the new Horizon Image Management Service. This allows the admin to see a global catalog of images, import and reuse an existing Windows 10 image from the existing on-premises site, and maybe even replicate it across sites later on. Next, we have to give the contractors some desktops and some applications. So for this, notably, check out how the admin uses cloud brokering and smart desktop placement policies to route different users to different sites. He can also configure minimum and maximum thresholds to optimize cloud usage. The next step is to select some applications. You can do that here, and that's pretty much it. Now, when the contractor logs into Workspace ONE, he sees a tile for the desktops and apps that he needs to do his daily job and hit the ground running.
Okay, so virtual desktops, VDI, is actually one of the most deployed workloads that we see on VMware Cloud on AWS. The difference here is now you're offering this as desktop as a service managed by VMware. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm going to buy some of those at Tanzu Teas.
Sounds good.
So, of course, I've got more questions for you, right?
Yes.
So, when I look at the challenges that Tanzu Teas are facing, the shipping department, they use these scanners, these handheld devices for making sure the T-shirts get out to the right distribution centers and so on. And they keep telling me we get problems with these, updated drivers being needed, etc. What I want to know is, can I begin to manage that experience for that shipping department, and again, preferably even in a bit of a proactive fashion, if possible?
Absolutely. Workspace ONE is the solution for exactly this. Let's see the demo. So check out how the admin is using Workspace ONE to manage a range of devices and apps: physical, virtual, Windows 10, Mac, smart glasses, and even those rugged devices, 2-in-1 Windows 10 devices. And looks like the admin just received a notification about that issue in the shipping department. So the admin opens up the new Employee Experience Dashboard, where he sees and manages app issues, device issues. There is even a score for user experience. Sure enough, he can see a spike in the blue screens. And he can also tell this is because of a recent device driver update. To remediate, he sets up an automation rule to roll back the driver update on the impacted devices and file an IT ticket for tracking. Not only that, he can also send a notification using the Intelligent Hub app to all the truck drivers about the issue. So, what do you think, Ray?
So, I think I lost my cue. Sorry, Shika.
That's okay.
So
save the shipping SLAs for this, right?
Exactly. So at this stage, the shipping department is working really well. We've solved all of their problems.
Yes.
So when we think about this, however, look, there's still more challenges we want to deal with. Marcos gave us a great idea of how we can secure the infrastructure itself, particularly leveraging products like Carbon Black, right? But now I've got all of these handheld devices. I want to make sure what is our best way to be able to secure all of that as well.
Sure. I'm glad you asked that, because guess what happened over the weekend? Alice, head of sales, received a huge order. But in her excitement, she clicked on a malicious link and fell for a phishing scam. But not to worry. This is where Workspace ONE Risk Analytics comes into the picture. Let's see the demo. So Workspace ONE uses sophisticated machine learning models to create a baseline for expected behavior. Any anomalies, they get flagged and contribute to a risk score, which in turn can be used to set up conditional access. So let's see what's going on here. Let's interpret these graphs. So if you take a look, looks like network traffic has actually spiked to twice the normal levels. And there was a malicious login attempt from Oslo. And Carbon Black, yes, it has contributed and shown that there are lots of suspicious processes, unusual amount of processes going on. All this unexpected behavior raises Alice's risk score to high. And Workspace ONE provides you the tools to automatically react to such situations, and that's exactly what happened here. The malicious login was prevented due to multi-factor authentication, access to secure content was blocked, a message to IT was sent over Slack, and the device was quarantined. The Carbon Black integration, yes, we now partner with third-party trust network providers to get a holistic view. And as we heard yesterday, we have, for the very first time in the industry, endpoint management with Workspace ONE, endpoint security with Carbon Black to give us workspace security.
So this explains why Alice was not able to give me the sales numbers this morning, but I am more comfortable with the fact that the company has been protected from this phishing attack.
That's right.
You know, once again, you have some real-world examples. You want to take us through how that applies to Workspace ONE?
Absolutely. So, you know, all these demos with Tanzu teas, this stuff is real.
Yeah.
You, I, all VMware employees, we use Workspace ONE daily. So fun fact, did you know that VMware IT uses Workspace ONE to manage over 65,000 devices and over 1,000 apps across 125 global offices? And that's not all. We also have Delta Airlines. Actually, Delta Airlines is a long-time Workspace ONE customer. They've been using Workspace ONE for enterprise-owned devices to manage apps like in the flight bag cockpit. But now, they're using Workspace ONE to manage a homegrown app to book travel for all Delta employees using any device that they can bring. So really, Ray, this is about app access on any device, anywhere, for a great employee experience.
Excellent. Thank you, Shika.
Thank you.
Thank you. So once again, let's summarize what we heard from Shika. With VMware Horizon Service, it allows you to rapidly scale desktops as a service on VMware Cloud on AWS. With VMware Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management, we get to manage the employee experience across devices, applications, and multiple platforms. And with VMware Workspace ONE Zero Trust Security Model, we deliver workspace security and zero trust access leveraging Carbon Black. So at this stage, what we're seeing here is, of course, a lot of focus on security. You heard it from Marcus. You heard it a lot in what Shika was speaking about as well. And I just want to reflect back to one of the comments Pat had made earlier. What you're seeing is this concept of intrinsic security being built into the infrastructure itself, all the way into how we protect and manage the mobile devices, endpoint security, cloud security, and network security, all of this coming together. So let's recap where we are in the overall story now on Tanzu Teas. We've looked at the build and run. We've looked at how we connect and protect and secure the infrastructure, how to manage it, and this unique employee experience. However, companies only exist in order to be able to actually build these products and deliver these products. And so what we need to work out, are we actually able to ship our products to our customers? Well, we actually do have some customers. We have one sitting right up here in front, Mr. Pat Gelsinger, wearing one of our T-shirts. There you go. So, as usual in these Day 2 presentations, we swing a little bit to some of the future aspects of what is happening as well. And to help me do that, please welcome Greg Lavender.
Hey, Ray.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
Pretty good. You know, it was exactly 6 years ago that I was standing on this stage in August 2013 on a customer panel as a customer that Pat chaired as early adopters of NSXB. We've come a long way in 6 years.
Yes, we have. So, speaking of customers, as a VMware CTO, you spend a lot of time going out and visiting customers every single day. Can you tell us, what are you hearing from these customers, particularly as you look forward to some of the technologies they're asking about or interested in?
Sure, Ray. Great question. I've mostly been out visiting very large enterprise customers, a lot of financials, et cetera. And the one thing that there's three things I consistently hear. Number one is customers have a large variety and a diverse set of application workloads, and they're analyzing those workloads to baseline the total cost of ownership. Secondly, they're evaluating what cloud services and cloud capabilities those applications might best be suitable for. And there are four key principles that you have to consider. You have to consider the cost, you have to consider the scale, you have to consider the speed of delivery, and perhaps most importantly, you have to consider the security trade-offs that you have to make. Third is that customers are really looking for the optionality or choice. They're looking to say, okay, do I run these workloads in a private cloud? Do I run them in a hybrid cloud? Do I run them in an edge cloud? Do I run them in a public cloud? Or do I even run them in a multi-cloud environment? And so I think those are the three key things that I hear consistently across customers. And they're all non-trivial business analysis and technical decisions to make. For example, let's look at there's an emerging class of new workloads for ML that require hardware acceleration. So if we think about it, these ML workloads require performance acceleration, require high performance using hardware offloads to accelerate them. I recently heard Satya Nadella speak where he said, if you're programming in Python, you're likely implementing ML. If you're programming in PowerPoint, it's AI. So VMware recently acquired a company called Bitfusion. Pat mentioned it in his keynote address. And Bitfusion is a very interesting technology, particularly at the hardware-software interface level, because Bitfusion will allow you to take your existing workloads that are running on vSphere, let's say they're machine learning workloads, and attach them to a pool of shared resources, such as GPUs, or even FPGAs and ASICs. And this gives you the opportunity or the choice to run those workloads either in the cloud or on-premise on your own environment or your own infrastructure and take advantage of sharing and scaling this expensive resource that's in your data center. And finally, if you do that, you get to keep your data on-prem, so therefore you're likely to have a higher degree of security.
So with Bitfusion, you get the flexibility of being able to leverage these offloads, but with a particular focus, I think today, primarily probably on GPUs for AI and machine learning.
There's emerging FPGAs and ASIC technology as well.
Right. What we're also seeing, though, is a lot of offloads technology beginning to appear in the networking space. Absolutely. Your history is very much in networking. Can you tell us what we're seeing there and what VMware can do in terms of helping people leverage these technologies?
Sure, Ray. I mean, there's a whole class of software-defined network services that can be provisioned on what is called a network function virtualization platform. We call that NFV. But what you actually deploy on an NFV platform is a number of VMs, and each VM carries in it a virtual network function, or a VNF, that implements some software-defined service. And you can run this on commodity hardware in the data center or at the edge. And also there's a new set of SmartNIC technology that's coming out that can allow you to offload some of the performance requirements of those VNFs. So we have a demo actually, Ray, that will actually sort of show us an example of this. So we have a single host, which happens to be a Dell PowerEdge server, running 4 ESXi instances. The first ESXi instance is running, and there's 3 ARM-based SmartNICs in this device. So the first ESXi instances are running 2 data processing applications on the main x86 CPU in this server. We also have defined a virtual network function in a network appliance that's running on across 2 ESXi instances, running across 2 Mellanox Bluefield SmartNICs. And so in this case, the VNF is a single VM that's running in fault-tolerant mode across those 2 SmartNICs with those 2 ESXi services. These are non-nested VMs. I'll say that again. These are non-nested VMs, which is actually an important thing. Okay? Thanks, Chad. Finally, we have a security monitoring service running on a Broadcom Stingray SmartNIC, also with an ARM processor, that's running the popular snort intrusion detection service. If you actually can see the trace screen here, in the bottom screen is actually running the snort alerting mechanism, but we're actually running Wireshark in the upper screen just so we can see all the deep packet inspection that's going on across that environment. So essentially, we want to make sure something really important is that this is a network platform. It's a virtualized ESXi platform managed by vCenter with 4 ESXi instances. Sorry, and each ESXi instance, one instance is on the server, one instance is on two instances are on 2 SmartNICs from Mellanox, and one instance is on a SmartNIC from Broadcom.
So when I look at this, what I'm seeing here is a fundamentally, basically interesting type of networking appliance, right? Because it consists of, it's a true NFV platform. It's got embedded ARM accelerators, all of those running ESX as well, which means they can have applications downloaded to them, and all of it uniquely managed or consistently managed across Virtual Center.
Correct.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. So Ray, if you give me a little bit of time, I'd like to do another demo.
Okay.
To show the art of the possible in a multi-cloud world. So you're going to have to, I'm going to talk slowly on this one because there's a lot going on. I want to make sure everybody follows me through it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to show a combination of using hybrid cloud technology, edge cloud technology, and IoT. So we've made this example where there's a brewery, we're going to call it Greg's Irish Brewery, that is using the Azure IoT Edge services, as you see on the screen here. And that microbrewery, I call it the Irish microbrewery because I like Irish beer and I make Irish beer, is running in VMware solutions by Cloud Simple in Azure. And it's using the Azure IoT Edge service. So here's the trace of the telemetry that's coming off of that Edge service to that VM. Now, and here's the VM, here's a picture of the VM actually running with vCenter. You can actually see it running in Azure. So we got the next example is we have a winery application that's also doing monitoring, but the winery application is using the AWS IoT Greengrass service. And you can see the winery service over here where it's connected with the devices at the winery, feeding telemetry back to the monitoring service running in AWS Cloud, it's running in VMware Cloud on AWS with the AWS IoT Greengrass service. So here's the telemetry feeding back to that. So now I'm going to do something multi-cloud. I'm going to live migrate the brewery that's running on Cloud Simple and Azure over to VMware Cloud and AWS. So I'm going to trade the microbrewery, right? Okay, so I'm going to start the migration using hybrid cloud extensions to do the live migration. And we've set up vMotion replication ahead of time so that the vMotion proceeds more quickly. So just to prove that this is not a cloud magic trick, that what I'm doing, I'm going to actually migrate the winery from Azure VMC on AWS over to Cloud Simple. So we'll start that migration. It'll take a couple minutes for this to work. So essentially, HCX is providing this service that allows me to move the VMs between the 2 clouds while they maintain their connectivity to the native IoT Edge monitoring services that they were already provisioned with. So the Azure winery now is calling the AWS IoT Edge service, and the brewery, now running in VMC on AWS, is calling the Azure IoT Edge service. And the telemetry was never lost because NSX does the underlying magic to make sure the network plumbing stays connected. So I think the live migration is now complete, and you will see the vCenter instances that show that the winery is now on Azure and the brewery is now on VMC and AWS.
Okay, I want to be clear I got this. First of all, I'll go for the Irish brewery if that's okay, right? So the applications, and I know we've Cloud Simple and we've VMware Cloud and AWS involved, but essentially you moved running infrastructure, running applications from an Azure data center to an AWS data center and vice versa.
Correct.
So that's pretty epic, but why would I do that?
Just because we can.
Okay. Okay, let's summarize some of the future sections that we saw here. Just like in the past, you saw some new and interesting products. The heart of that VNF platform, or NFV platform, I'm sorry, was ES6i on ARM, these new frontiers for virtualization running on these offload devices. And what you also saw was essentially this concept of cross-cloud vMotion. Run apps on multi-cloud services without boundaries or limits. This highly flexible way of doing that. Excellent. So let's wrap up our Tanzu Tees story here. So you saw how Tanzu Tees, we helped them really build and make these T-shirts. Now, while the company is not real, the T-shirts are real. And so what we're going to do is a little bit later, there's a limited supply of these available, and we'll give you some details at the end of the show how you can get some of these T-shirts. So, okay.
Hey, Ray, one more thing.
You're modeling the T-shirt, right? Okay.
Ray, one more thing. You've heard us say how important Kubernetes is to us, the Tanzu strategy that we've laid out, the pivotal merger that we're working on aggressively. And I couldn't think of a better, more capable leader to bring these capabilities than our 16-year veteran, having done products and code and now CTO for 5 years. It's my pleasure to announce Ray O'Farrell as the leader of our cloud-native efforts going forward. Thank you, Ray, for your years of contribution.
Thank you. Woo! Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
But Ray, I got a problem. I ain't got a CTO anymore.
It's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the new CTO for VMware, and a friend for many, many years, and an academic at UT Austin, and a longtime product guy at Cisco and at Sun, and a user at Citi, and now part of the VMware family, VMware's new CTO, Greg Lavender.
Congratulations, Greg. Thank you. We're going to go down here.
And let's just one time again, incredible demos, demonstrating breakthrough technologies across the portfolio. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ray, and to all the other demonstration team that you had on. Just fabulous job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.